All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a guest segment right now, and very pleased to have with us a gentleman working hard for our rights, the right to work, president of the National Right to Work Committee. He is also someone who is the president of the foundation, the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation. And let's welcome back to the program Mark Mix, who's with us here on the airwaves. Mark, how are you? Good morning.
And thanks for being on the ringside. Although I think based on what I'm hearing from your show, you're in the ring, not on the ringside. So thanks for being in the ring.
Yes, indeed. And thank you, Mark, for your time this morning. So Joe Biden is going to be a very anti-right to work president if he's elected. Is he threatening to wipe out all right to work laws all across the country?
Yeah, exactly, Jeff. Unfortunately, candidate Biden and his running mate Kamala Harris have indicated that they want to repeal Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Act, which allows states like Louisiana and the 26 other states that have those right-to-work laws in place to pass this prohibition against forcing workers to pay dues or fees to get or keep a job. Louisiana's been a right-to-work state since 1976 when Governor Edwin Edwards signed it back into law. But if Harris and Biden make it to the White House and they get the appropriate support in the Senate, which they already have in the House, a bill to repeal all the right-to-work laws passed in the House back in February, they have committed to the union bosses in America that they would allow them to force workers to pay dues or fees in order to work in America. Really radical ideas.
And, you know, over the years, I've been a proponent of right to work. And as you say, it's been the law here in Louisiana for decades. And I think we were sort of at the forefront of a right to work here in Louisiana. It's been growing and growing and growing. And now you're up to 27 states, and that's fantastic. What are some of the recent states that have converted to right to work?
Yeah, Jeff, it's been a great run over the last 8 years. We passed a right-to-work law in February of 2012 in Indiana, and that came after we passed a right-to-work law in Oklahoma in 2001. We went to the map and looked at the Great Lakes region, the so-called Rust Belt, and we thought, you know, here's a great opportunity to try to get a foothold in that area. And so we went to Indiana. We started working with folks in Indiana, lots of great right-to-work supporters there, both individuals and small business people who wanted the individual freedom and the economic opportunity that right to work brings. And so in 2012, Governor Mitch Daniels signed the law. And then in December of 2012, we got Michigan, Jeff. Michigan passed a right to work law. And then shortly after that came Wisconsin, then West Virginia, then Kentucky. So it's been a good 8 years for us. And all of that has really gotten the attention of organized labor officials, the union bosses here in Washington, D.C. And that's why they're demanding, and Biden and Harris are complying, that they stop our momentum, that they stop right to work, and they go back to a 1935 law that was passed through the Roosevelt administration that literally allows union officials to have workers fired if they don't tender dues or fees.
And that is I think that's anti-American. And I think we should have the right to join a union if we want, or not join a union, right? I mean, the right to work is not against unions, are you? I mean, if you want to be in a union, be in a union, right?
Exactly, Jeff. If you want to be in the union, that right is protected. If you want to have a union amplify your voice in the workplace, that right is protected. If you want to give money to a union, that right's protected. If you want to give your entire paycheck to a union, you can do that. Nothing in the 27 right to work states stops a worker from participating in a union. What it does do, interestingly enough, Jeff, is it holds union officials accountable. And this means that workers can vote with their pocketbooks and vote with their money. If they don't believe the union bosses are serving them, they can step back and say, you know what? I'm not going to pay you any money because I don't think you're doing anything for me. And, you know, when you take a scandal like we have with the United Auto Workers Union in Detroit, where 11 union officials are now either in jail or pled guilty waiting sentencing because they stole workers' money for golf clubs and champagne and places in Palm Springs and big steak dinners. And the federal prosecutor up there in Detroit said, you know, this was a racketeering and an extortion operation. So if you're a worker and you're compelled to pay these people money, you know, they don't have to provide services to you, and you can't hold them accountable. But in the 27 states that have right to work laws, when you see union officials doing this, you say, you know what? No more money for you until you clean up your act, and then I'll decide whether or not I want to support you. That makes sense to me.
You know, I don't mind unions that are out there fighting for workers' rights and better pay and benefits, and that are really focused on their members. But the ones who are using their dues for these extravagant perks? And also, how about political donations? And why is it always that these unions seem to be supporting Democrat candidates when many of the rank and file are Republicans?
Yeah, Jeff. I mean, that's a great question, and it's one that comes very simply because union officials have been granted this compulsory forced unionism power in the law. Once you start to go to government for your power, whether it be, in Washington, D.C. or Sacramento, California, or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, once you go to government for your power, you have to maintain that power by making sure you have enough friends in government to keep that power going or to grow it or just to sustain it. So union officials, back when they decided to get to the federal government and have this power granted to them, they've been wards of government policy for years, going back to the 1930s. And so that's why they have to play politics. And unfortunately for rank and file workers, as you mentioned, Jeff, many of them support the ideas of this current president, and many of them vote for a party that is opposite of what the union bosses would endorse. And that's unfortunate, but that compulsory forced unionism power is what gives them the ability to do it, and that's why they have to play in politics.
Do we know what kind of money we're talking about that go from the unions to the Democrat Party and to candidates like Joe Biden? Do we know what kind of figures we're talking about?
Yeah, Jeff. We do a study every 2 years on the reports that union officials file with the federal government. They file reports with the Department of Labor. These are private sector unions. Most public sector unions don't file these reports, so it's hard to get information on this. But they file these reports with the Department of Labor, and they file reports with the Federal Election Campaign Commission. And what we've been able to find, and no one's argued about it because it's the union numbers, is what they report. They spend about $2 billion every 2 years on federal elections alone. That's lobbying and politics in the federal elections alone. That's more than really anybody else in the game, frankly. And one of the things we know about it, and one of the things that you've recognized and lots of other people who look at it recognize, it really goes to one party. It goes to one party to the degree of about 94 to 96% goes to one party. I won't have to tell you who that is, but it does, and that's why they play politics, and they're big players. But interestingly enough, all that money doesn't really make that much of a difference. If you look back at the candidates that endorsed presidential sweepstakes back and forth, their candidates are generally losing in the primary. Their candidates in general elections and primaries who get the most support from organized labor are generally the ones that come up short. So you have this big chasm between rank and file union members and the union officials who are spending their money for political causes.
I don't understand how the rank and file put up with this, because you have a president that's fighting for secure borders. So he doesn't want any illegals flooding in here and taking jobs from union members. He's fighting to bring back American manufacturing and American factories, and he's fighting for good trade deals. And the Democrats, they want open borders. They want illegals streaming in here taking jobs. They want horrible trade deals, which are going to hurt the wages and jobs of the rank and file. Seems like the president is more in line with the rank and file than certainly Joe Biden and the Democrats.
Absolutely, Jeff. And the numbers bear that out. When you look at the exit polls, or however those things are conducted, we find that, anywhere from 40 to 49% of union households are voting for candidates that are not endorsed by the so-called union leadership. And so, the policies of this president are the policies that help him win rank and file workers in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. You don't win those states in a presidential election unless you're attracting the votes of rank and file workers, to your point, Jeff, that believe in bringing manufacturing jobs back to America, who believe in Second Amendment rights, who believe in less government. But the policies they're getting from the union bosses here in Washington, D.C. are policies of bigger government, and things that hurt the rank and file workers that they claim to represent.
Well, Mark Mix, keep up the great work. We need more right-to-work states across the country. We have 27 now. I'd love to see 50 right-to-work states, and I know we're moving in that direction. But we're not if Biden and Harris get elected. So critically important issue. I'm glad you're bringing it forward for our viewers and listeners. Thank you, sir.